14 years. Got a bunch jumping in now, Richie.
Yeah, the 6:30 crew.
There we go.
I'll see us.
There's Richie. Richie Cook, Sheriff.
Hey, what's up, Sean?
You were up there, though.
Oh, yeah? There's Keelan. Richie, you're calling whenever you want to get this rolling. I don't want to.
Yeah, we can stop.
I'm wide open because I don't have any. I have another one of these for association out in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and not till 8:45 though. So. You wanted me to get going?
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah, we'll get going for the people that joined. So, welcome everybody, and certainly thank you for taking the time to jump on Zoom tonight. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Roger Grill. I'm Director of Player Development for USA Hockey. I'm based out of Rhode Island, but certainly have responsibilities not only in the United States, but certainly all over the globe. When it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to talking with coaches in particular about how we maximize player development for our players in today's world, and I would just say to you that dramatically, and I'll actually, you know what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start out with a presentation here, and then since it's a small group, I want to make sure I cater this to your needs and your wants. If there's a question, comment, thought, don't hesitate, because this can kind of spin into any direction that you think will benefit yourself as an organization, as a coach, as a parent. I'm sure most of you are coaching because you have kids that play. And then we can go from there. So I think the most important thing is that as a coach in particular, that's the modern game is, what the modern game asks of our athletes, and then how things have changed. I mean, if you think about it, would you ever go to a dentist that used 30-year-old techniques or philosophies, right? And so when we talk about our kids, is it productive for us to deliver the same stuff that got delivered to us 30 years ago? Especially our younger athletes. And so it's really important to understand how you get the most out of your kids so that they get the best experience, so that you're building the base, the foundations. Those of you that are coaching our younger kids, your job is twofold, in my opinion. One is to build passion, so they want to play it, stay in the game, and then two, to help them get better. And then really, at the end of the day, those are the two, in my opinion, responsibilities. Two things. The byproduct of that is your teams are going to have more success, your numbers are going to grow, and it's going to be a great experience for everybody. And certainly, youth sports is not a perfect world in today, but we can certainly make it that much more productive. And so, what does that mean? What does that look like? And I would tell you that one of the issues that we have, it's a huge issue, particularly here in the Northeast, is the training model has fallen way behind the competition model. Meaning that a lot of the stuff that's done, the structure, the environment, the culture, the practice, the training, the experience of the athlete, everything's geared around the game, right? And in reality, what we know is what helps players get better is practice. And particularly in an environment where we just had to cancel for first time ever our national pond hockey championships out in Wisconsin because there's no ice. And so the lack of unstructured free time and play for our kids on the pond, backyard rinks, in the street, at the playground, everything's kind of come inside, supervised and run by the adults, and in a lot of cases, structured and coached at an adult level or an adult type environment. And what we've just found over the years, it just doesn't work. It doesn't translate. It doesn't allow players to reach their full potential. And we can dive more into that as we move along. But really, I think the most important thing is the games will take care of themselves. But a big part of our talk tonight is going to be, what does practice look like? And I want you to think about this. If I was a producer of a 30-minute, or let's say a 1-hour television show, and I expected my audience to hang in for the first 20 minutes because I knew it was going to be boring and non-exciting, not fun, no entertainment value whatsoever. But we got to get through this stuff because it's really important. I would lose my audience. And so when I'm coaching 8, 9, 7, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, for me to deliver line skating, 1970s power skating, for 20 minutes, think about what that does to the athlete in terms of their passion, their engagement, their actual investment in getting better. I would say to you, those of you that did grow up on the street or on the pond, did you ever go to the outdoor rink and do edge work? Did you ever go to the rink without pucks? Did you ever go to the outdoor rink and not just compete with your buddies and the neighborhood kids? I mean, imagine going to the outdoor rink. If I saw a buddy of mine when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 going to the outdoor rinks growing up in Minnesota doing edge work, I'd be like, something's wrong with that kid. Like he's got some issues, right? So can we not deliver a productive, positive player development, individual athlete-centered environment for our athletes? It's critical. It's absolutely critical. Because I'll tell you, USA Hockey's at the top of the mountain right now. We've had 3 international events happen so far in the new year. World Junior, we won gold. Women's under 18, we won gold. And our Youth Olympic team, which is the best 15-year-olds in the world, just came back with gold. So we're 3 for 3 in international play, gold medals. 20 years ago, we were lucky if we were in the top 6. We were getting annihilated. I mean, the miracle on ice was exactly what it was. It was a miracle on ice, right? And, the expectation for American-born hockey players was not that great. And now it's the complete opposite. We're expected to win gold. And not only that, but we have people that are coming to us now trying to figure out what we're doing so that they can keep pace. And that's why this type of conversation tonight is so critical. And a big part of it starts with practice. I can tell you right now, at the age of 14, the Swedes and the Finns, because to me, there's a fork in the road at 14, right? And that fork is I want to just play hockey or I want to be really good at hockey. And the players in Sweden and Finland at the age of 14, they practice 8 times a week. Think about that. 8 times a week. An hour before school, an hour after school. That's practice. That doesn't include off-ice training, which they get in before or after each practice. So there's another 16 training sessions, right? And then think about think about all the video work they do starting at that age and all the individual coaching sessions that happen. There's kids in Sweden and Finland that are getting more practice time in a week than our kids in parts of our country in an entire month. And then we wonder why a country like Sweden last year had 113 NHL players with only 41,000 athletes, and Massachusetts with 48,000 had 24 NHL players. How is that possible? Their focus is on the individual athlete and training. They know that that's where the difference is made. And so when you step through the door for practice on a given night, what's happening? What's being delivered? How is it being delivered? And is it productive? And so that's the challenge I throw out to all of you as you work through this process. I think it's really important for coaches to understand that probably the most important part of coaching is observation. If you don't see what's happening, you can't analyze it and you can't adjust it. Because if I'm a really good teacher in school, I don't teach the class. Because if I teach the class, I don't challenge the best students enough. My weaker students get left behind, and my middle students just pick a spot. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go up or are they going to go down? If I'm a really good teacher, I teach the individual students in my class. Because I know at some point, they're going to move on in life, not as a class, but as an individual, right? Same thing in sport. I should never coach the team. I should coach the individuals on the team. And what one person needs at a given time could be completely opposite of what another player on your team might need at a given time. And so that ability to really step back, see what's happening, analyze it, and adjust it is really critical. Flow versus conflict. What I want you to think about is this. Imagine if you grew up your whole life driving on Highway 95 between, I played at the University of Maine, so when we'd go down and play BC or BU, we would drive back on the bus. And from Portland, Maine north, there was basically nobody on the road. We were going in the middle of nowhere, right? Imagine your athletes if you never put them in conflict, if you just keep them in flow. Imagine they never have been in traffic. Imagine creating a practice environment that's easier in the game. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Practice is for failure. Practice is for working on what they don't do well. Practice is for conflict. And we'll talk more about that in a second. I want you to think about physical, mental, and emotional chaos. How do we create that safe environment, but that gets kids out of their comfort zone and allows them to kind of stretch themselves a little bit? The accountability to the right stuff. If I'm not watching what's going on, how do I know my athletes are actually... What I see, I ask coaches all the time, because I'll go watch practice. I'll go watch NHL practices. And then I'll sit down with friends of mine who are coaching at the NHL level, and I'll be like, why are you getting mad at so-and-so after Saturday's game when I watched 2 or 3 of your practices in a row and so-and-so was doing the same thing that's driving you nuts in the game, but you never saw it and you never held them accountable to the right stuff, right? So I ask coaches all the time, is it the coach or is it the athlete? So when you get mad at somebody, you're upset because they're not performing at a level you think they should be or that they're capable of. What's happening in practice? Because I see it over and over again. Not only is it unproductive in practice, but it's actually working against player development because the right stuff isn't happening, right? The kid who skates with his head down, the kid who doesn't see the ice well. So what are we going to do? We're going to stick handle through pylons, which force a kid's head down and the inability to scan the ice and force to make a play. We got to put that kid in traffic. He's going to crash into somebody if his head's down, right? But now instead of me telling him your head has to be up, I'm going to force that habit to happen because of the environment and culture I've created, right? And then compete. We have a huge issue right now in not just our sport, but in a lot of youth sports where a lot of our better athletes we struggle to find consistent compete, right? So when I work our tryouts for our national team, when I'm working with some of our national team players on men's and women's side in the summer, to get our best athletes to consistently compete, it's a challenge. It's a constant battle. And at the end of the day, if you really think about it, that's ground zero. That's the bottom floor. If you're constantly having to work on the bottom floor, how are you going to build up and really make better hockey players? And so putting them in a competitive environment where the expectation is for them. In the game of ice hockey, it's never your turn to have the puck. So why do coaches give me a turn to have the puck? Well, why don't we do more drills that start with a battle? Why don't I have to earn the opportunity to get a shot on net? Why don't I have to earn the opportunity to have the puck on my stick? Why is it my turn, right? Because if I don't put kids in that environment where I'm forced to have to work hard, make good decisions, make good reads to win the puck, because I know coach is going to give it to me, then why would I can cheat the system. I'm just going to wait for you to give it to me, right? And so that's why our good young players don't back check. That's why they struggle defensively. That's why they struggle off the puck. It's because we create this environment where we as the coach are the problem, not the athlete, okay? So just some things to think about there, right? Because I want to ask you, I'm going to show you this video, and I want to ask you which practice is yours, okay? Because the beauty of ice hockey is there's always someone trying to take the puck away from me. There's somebody that's trying to do the opposite of what I'm trying to do. So can we create that culture, that conflict, that traffic in practice where there's pushback, right? The first two reps are fine, but at some point you got to put them in a situation where someone's going to push back on them. Otherwise, it's unfair. You can't expect them to all of a sudden flip that switch on Saturday and Sunday when the other team, the referee, all the visiting parents or the opponent's parents, it's a chaotic environment. And so why wouldn't we put those kids in that situation over and over and over again in practice? And by the way, they want that. They love that. They want to compete. They want to get after it with their friends because it's safer. Now, the art of coaching is I never let my best player go head-to-head with my weakest player. Competition does not drive development at a young age. Competition can actually drive anti-development. So I'm going to make sure that my stronger players are being challenged. I'm going to make sure my weaker players are getting touches and building confidence. So if I have a really, really high-end kid, I'm not letting that kid go one-on-one against anybody else. He's going to have to go one-on-two. I'm going to force him to play without the puck. 98% of the game is played without the puck. Yet 99% of the stuff we focus on with our hockey players is what they do with the puck. It's only 2% of the game. So what are we doing? We're not making hockey players, right? And so I would say for you, for all positions, and particularly our goaltenders, I want you to think about these 5 elements of a good practice, right? They're going to get their touches, put them in situations where there's constant decision-making. We're going to put them in situations where it's game-like. We're going to make sure it's fun. And we got to make sure the challenge for the players is appropriate, right? Because if not, good players disengage, weaker players shut down. You can't put them in the deep end if they're not ready, and you can't keep them in the shallow end if they're ready for the deep end. So it's the art of coaching and observation. These 5 elements have to be a part of everything you do if you're really going to develop hockey players. And to me, if I were to rank these, it would go fun, it would go decision-making, it would go game-like, it would go challenge, and then it would go touches. In that order. So I'm going to make sure that everything I do has a component of compete and fun in it. I'm going to make sure everything I do has a component of decision making. I'm going to try to do as much as I can that looks like the game. Okay? So a bunch of research and data. Okay? One efficient, well-run practice is worth 11 games. So if I run a really well-run practice, that's the equivalent of playing 11 games developmentally for an athlete. So again, going back to that original slide, training versus competition. Okay? How important practice really is. I already talked about the one at the bottom. 99% of the feedback. It's amazing. I think back to myself as a young coach and coaching college hockey and all the conversations I had on the bench, all the conversations I had at practice, all the conversations between periods. It was all about the puck. And yet, that's only 2% of the game. So, are we really making hockey players if we're not focused on some of that? Okay? Again, I talked about this. Commitment to the individual athlete's development. This is where the Europeans are really, really good. They really focus on the individual player, not necessarily the team. And their culture and environment really creates that. You know, we have a battle in our country with trying to get 8 and under to play cross-ice hockey. The Swedes took 2 years to study with GPS trackers on their players what the best environment developmentally was for players, particularly going to those 5 elements I just talked about in practice. And what they found was, and they changed it last year, their 8 and unders play 5-on-5 in 1/6 of the rink. Think about that. 5-on-5 in a half a zone. Not a half a rink, not a whole zone, in a half a zone. So in reality, they could have 6 games going on one sheet. And then 10U, they go to cross ice. And then at 12U, they go to half ice. And then at 14U, Bantam Hockey, a half of their season is 4-on-4 half ice, and then the rest of their season's full ice. All the way up to 14U. Why? Because they understand that decision-making, that conflict, that constant chaos is actually what develops players. The hardest thing to do in ice hockey at the highest level is to create time and space offensively. It's so difficult. And it's trying to get our players to understand where the good ice is. But our environment in our country really forces kids to learn how to use the bad ice, because that's where the open space is, and there's just not enough conflict. In our culture, there's not enough conflict in the games, and in a lot of practices as well. When we talk to NHL scouts, we talk to our national team coaches, when we talk to college coaches, number one priority is hockey sense. Hockey sense and the mental decisions that happen in a game. The ability to read the game, right? Give me a kid who thinks the game better, who can play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. I can help them get stronger. I can help them get faster. I can help their hands get better, right? I can do all that. It's really hard to make them smarter when they get older. And so putting them in that environment where they have to make decisions and they have to scan the ice is priority number one. And so we would say to you, if we watch Patrick Kane here, a lot of people would say that's great skill, and we would tell you that's not skill. That's not skill. In fact, it's so far from skill, it's scary, right? So one of the greatest American players ever, where's his head? He's looking at the object, he's trying to get around. Do the patterns change? Do the pucks move? Is there people that are trying to knock his head off as he's making those plays? So this type of stuff only gets you so far. Because what makes Patrick Kane special is his ability to use the technique he has in his hands off of a decision in traffic in a game. So this is just a small piece. Because like in soccer, they have a great saying. All great players are great jugglers of the ball, but all great jugglers of the ball are not great players. Right? Because how do I take my really good hands, my great feet, and become a productive player? It's got to be connected to the head. Because everything I do in the game has to come off of a decision. And I would tell you, most of our players, especially at a young age, they're not making decisions. They're just going as fast as they can. And then oftentimes, they're going as fast as they can to the wrong place. Right? They're in a hurry to get to nowhere. They'll skate themselves into the corner. They'll skate themselves into the wall. They'll skate themselves right into a defender. Right? They won't use the width of the rink. They don't see what's happening around them. And so we would say to you that that's probably the most important aspect. A couple last things, and then we'll open it up for discussion and any questions. Any questions coming up now, please feel free to ask. We talked about this before, the four rules of hockey: offense with the puck carrier, defense on the puck, offense away from the puck, and defense away from the puck. We would say to you, it's really, really important to minimally do your drills 2-on-2. Because at least 2-on-2, we have all four of those things happening consistently, right? If we do a ton of one-on-one stuff, it's just the top two. We got to get to the bottom two more often in practice, because the bottom two is 98% of the game is the play off the puck, and so many of our players are not very good at it. They're just not good at it, and so just some things to think about. So as I travel around and work with college teams and work with our national teams, work a little bit with some NHL teams, trying to get kids, trying to design practice that has those five elements in it, but then has a purpose to it, right? What's my goal? Am I there just to run a practice, or am I there to accomplish something? So a couple things. This is the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Last 2 years, gone over there and run practice for them and videotaped it so we can use it for things like this. 7 NHL draft picks on the squad, a couple of first rounders. I think they're in the middle of the pack in a really difficult league in college hockey. I want you. So this game I call Kick It, and I've played this game with 10U players. I'd say 8U's maybe is a little bit too advanced. But I drew a neutral zone here. See the two lines? That represents the two blue lines, right? And there's two rules. One, I cannot skate the puck over two lines. I have to kick the puck to a teammate. I can skate over one of the lines, but I can't skate over both the lines. Because what I find a lot of our better players do is they get the puck here, and they'll attack straight up here. And if I don't force defensive rotation, I'm not going to be very good offensively. Because once I force goalie rotation, once I force defenders to have to move, I open up seams. But if I get the puck and skate straight through it, straight up ice into the defender, it's really easy to defend. And these really good high-end Division I college athletes really struggle with this. Like these guys struggle. I have a favorite phrase in practice, and that's new puck. Because I'm not. If I have those two rules, I'm not gonna let you break them. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, I'm taking the puck away from you and giving it to the other team. It's not your turn. I oftentimes will put the puck on the goaltender. I'll oftentimes start practice a little bit differently than most, or start drills. Okay. I want you to look here at. Okay, we'll watch a little bit of this. So obviously, Blue's trying to score at this near end, the bottom end net. Red's trying to score. See, he took himself off sides. He didn't think about passing. They don't get the puck. I'm yelling, no, it's Blue's puck, Blue's puck, Blue's puck. but they don't understand how to work off the puck. They'll skate into coverage. They'll throw the puck just to get rid of it. But they'll start to figure it out after a while. There you go. Right? You get a little rotation and you open up seams. You can't dump the puck in. You have to make a play. Right? So there's all kinds of stuff that I'm going to hold the athletes accountable to force the right stuff to happen. And it's going to be ugly. It is going to be super ugly early on. But that's part of development. Now, I want you to watch. Go back to the very beginning. The first three athletes in red and the first three athletes in blue, what do you notice about them?
They're facing the other way.
Why do you think I would have the next three players facing the other way?
Chaos.
What kind of chaos am I trying to create?
Control chaos.
But what specifically?
Well,
The unknown.
they have to read the play.
What's that?
When they turn around, they have to read the ice, read the play.
So they have to be in motion while they make a read. Otherwise, they're standing still and they're reading where the puck is, and they're gonna figure out the angle, and they're gonna figure out how to win the puck while they're standing still. If you're standing still in hockey at the higher levels, you're basically useless, right? So I'm not gonna allow them to cheat visually. And oftentimes what I'll do, and I learned this coaching, the gentleman mentioned his picture on the wall behind me, Marty St. Louis, who's now the head coach of the Canadiens. Because Marty, because of his size and his lack of reach when he was a player for us, college for 4 years, he wasn't cheating. He was reading the play. Who do you think Marty was watching if he was the next guy up? How would you get the edge? If you were the next player up and you wanted to get the edge to win the puck, because possession is so critical, what would you do?
Were you watching the coach?
Yeah, he's watching the coach. Why?
Because he's going to tell him where the puck's going to go.
He's going to watch where the puck's on my stick, where I'm looking, and he's going to watch for my whistle to go up to my mouth, and he's going to be 2 steps in the zone before I even blow the whistle. Because he's going to get the edge. Right? And so how do I take a player that's that elite, that's that far ahead of everybody else mentally, and make sure he's still developing? Take away his eyes. And I oftentimes with Marty, I would take the puck and cheat it to the other team. Because he had the puck on his stick so much, I wanted him to play without it and learn how to defend. But you also had Timmy Thomas on that team. I would put the puck where I put the puck on this one, and Timmy would take the puck, and he'd try to go to the other end and score. I mean, he was just that competitive, right? And so little stuff like that is just critical to culture that you create. So, and I want you to watch one more thing here, because you don't necessarily have to do this game with your athletes, but you can do some of this stuff where you take away their eyes, you put them on their stomach, you put them on their backs, you add some layer of athleticism. I want you to watch. So the two, one of the red and one of the blue is going to go back. How am I starting this drill now?
Do they have the puck against the board?
There's a puck. It's almost like the table hockey game. It's like a face-off in table hockey. But there's a scrum on the boards. And then I want to send players in layers, right? And now they have to read off who's got possession. It just changes the game. But it's more game-like. Like, there's not very often where in a game where the puck's dumped in and there's 3 players from each team chasing the puck at the same time. Did anybody notice what just happened there?
Bump the guy up.
So I kicked the kid out of the game. Went over and tapped him, and he knows if I tap him, he's got to go out and skate a figure 8 around 2 tires. And I want to see if his team knows that they're down a guy, and I want to see if the other team knows they're up a guy. Happens all the time, but do we practice that? Are they even reading the situation? Because blue should have been all over red. They had a man advantage. right? And so all that little kind of stuff, that little fun, challenging stuff is really critical. Really super critical, okay? So I want you to watch this little one-on-one, two-on-two, and this could turn into three-on-three. This you could definitely do with your young athletes. So the group on the right is going to pass the puck. When they hear the whistle, whoever has the puck attacks the net, the other player has to defend. Then the other side starts passing, whistle blows, whoever has the pucks on offense, whoever doesn't have the pucks on defense. So it's a little one-on-one that starts, and nobody knows who's on offense or defense, particularly the goaltender, right? There's no predetermined position or role. It's a read. I'm forcing reads to happen, right? Now I can have players facing up ice. I can have one player facing up ice, one player facing down ice. I can have them in all different positions, right? So it's just a way. Think about how we do one-on-ones in practice. A lot of them start at the goal line or at the hash mark, and they go 150 feet down the rink. Never happens in a game. Why would we practice something that doesn't happen in the game? Why do we do 3-on-0s? I mean, 3-on-0, like I've coached for 40 years. Maybe I've seen one. What does it do? What do you gain from a 3-on-0? There's no decision. There's no read. There's no player forced to figure out where the seam is, how to open up, how to support. There's none of that. The goalie has no idea how to read off his defenseman. Is the defenseman going to take the shoot or take the pass? Like, what's happening? So are we making hockey players when we do some of this stuff that just doesn't translate to the game of ice hockey, right? So there's all these games. I mean, I want you to watch. I mean, look who's playing in the middle here, right? The goaltender's in line. Goaltender's playing. It's 3-on-3. 1 second game. You can only have the puck on your stick for a second. You can use your players in line, right? When you get it, you got to move it. You cannot overhandle. You overhandle, goalie almost scores. Goalie, if you overhandle, I'm going to take the puck away and I'm going to yell new puck. Right? Now let me ask you a question. Next level coaching. It's the first time these players ever did this drill. Is it the coach or is it the player? If I keep it in this format every time, what habit might I reinforce that's going to drive me nuts?
Yeah,
I'm going to actually force blind passes. Because if my blue players know I can throw it to anywhere on the side on the blue, their teammates are going to get it. So I don't have to pick my head up and find somebody. So what do I have to do to adjust it to make sure I'm not reinforcing something that actually makes me mad in practice? What would be the next thing I could do? What's the adjustment I would make based on my outfit?
You can switch red and blue players individually, like one after another.
Stagger them, right? So now I got to really be sharp with my passing, and I really got to pick my head up and find my teammate. I can't just throw it to a spot. Whenever you do any type of game that's got support in it, you got to move, you got to change it, you got to stay a step ahead of the players. Otherwise, you're the problem, right? So you always got to be cognizant of that type of stuff. So just little things like that are really, really critical. I want you to watch this, and the only reason why I want you to watch this is I want you to watch how we're starting the game. There's so many hidden pockets in practice for you to do skating. There's tons of them, okay? Watch how we start this drill. Each player's got to do 2 pivots and pick their stick up, and then they enter the game. So now we're working on pivoting, and the hardest working kid who does it right, does it well, gets in for first touch, right? So can I find pockets in practice that work on skating edge work, technique? Because again, there's very rarely a situation where everybody gets to the puck at the same time. It just doesn't happen. So change it up, right? And so that's my cell phone and my email address. If you want any of these, I can send you a copy of this. and you can take some of this stuff, just the philosophy behind it, and do your own thing. And I would strongly encourage that. But I would tell you, if I have 8U kids and I've got my 2 practices a week, the biggest priority for me is going to be these 5 things. And I'm going to prioritize fun, decision making, and game week. So that's a quick little, 20, 25-minute dissertation on practice environment. Anybody have any questions or thoughts that particularly pertain to you guys or your individual teams or yourself as a coach? Any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, so what we do now, we run 5 stations. I'd like to run 6. We just don't have the amount of coaches. I do limited line skating at the beginning, maybe 10 minutes at most, mostly for observation. Oh, this kid only stops one way. This one only turns one way. I ask my kids every day and other coaches' kids, like, what was your favorite part? And I always have like an obstacle course, working on the ABCs of skating, a 3-on-3 and 1-6 ice. Those are usually the 2 popular ones. But we talk about, you guys talked about like everything is skill right now, right? When do you start working on position?
I would ask you, what is position?
Basic fundamentals of offense and defense, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I coached my son's band. When I first left Brown University as a head coach and took this job, my son was a bantam. So they asked if I coach, and I said, only if you let me do it the way I want to do it. And it was a little association here in Rhode Island that had never won anything or done anything. And they let me do it. And we had 38 kids try out for bantams. We had 2 A teams and a B team, and we had 11 kids on each team. Everybody practiced together, right? And then we went and played our games. And the rule was, on the bench, it was the next 5 up. This is at 14U. And the players at first were like, well, where do you want us to play? I said, I don't care. You guys figure it out. I'm not telling you where to play. Where do you want to play? Where does your buddy want to play? Do you want to be center this time? Let your buddy play center next time. You want to play D? You play D. You play left wing the next time. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the NHL, college hockey, I was just watching the first period and a half of the Beanpot because I coached probably 10 of those kids in that game, Harvard and Northeastern on our Linka team 3 summers ago. And it's almost a positionless game. I mean, you watch an NHL game right now, I can show you clip after clip after clip where there's 10 players in 1/6 of the rink. And you can't tell who the defenseman and the forward or the right wing or the center is, right? And so position, to me, when people think about position in hockey, they think about where I go to stand. And if we teach them where to stand without a game-like situation, we are probably sending them to the wrong spot. Because they're going to go to the hash mark, they're going to go to the far post, they're going to go to the top of the circle, and they're going to guard defensively nobody. They're going to guard a space, right? And they're not making any decisions. They're just focused on their area of the rink. And the biggest challenge that we face right now is, how do we create hockey players, not positional players? The analogy I use, it's a great question, Richie. The analogy I use is, if I'm the director of the Ohio State marching band, and I've got to perform at halftime between Michigan and Ohio State every year, I don't run around the country looking for the best marchers. I want the best musicians, and I'll teach them how to march. If we had a whole pile, which we do, our pile's getting bigger and bigger because we've changed the mindset. If I could have just a whole bunch of really talented kids, I can teach them positioning in a week. That's the easiest part. I can dumb down anything. But are they going to make the right reads? Are they going to make the right decisions? Are they going to be really smart off the puck? Are they going to learn how to use good ice? versus bad ice. I mean, all that kind of stuff comes into play. That's why the Swedes went to the format I told you. There's no positions. There's no D. If you're playing 5-on-5 on 1/6 of the rink, there's not a single position. And so I'm not saying don't do some of that, but man, I would just say be really, really careful. I mean, if I told you my son played Division I college baseball, every right-handed player on the team, what position do you think they played in high school?
Shortstop.
Shortstop. Yeah, I mean, Herbie Brooks was a dear friend of the family. 90% of Minnesota Gophers back in the day, his teams were all centers. They were all centermen, right? Because centermen in the old regime had to do everything, right? You had coverage down low in your own end. You had to play the middle of the rink. You had to make your outside players better. You had the puck a ton. You had a lot of responsibility, right? And so think about that. With our national team defensemen, we teach them how to surf. We spend years teaching them how to surf, not even skate backwards on a rush. How do I get up on top of a guy? How do I play on top of somebody and play him going forward, right? You know, the two Hughes brothers, Quinn and Luke. I mean, watch these guys. Yeah, they're positioned. There's only one time in a game where it's black and white, and that's a face-off. Right? It's almost like a snap in football. But as soon as that puck hits the ice, it goes right to gray. It's all decisions. It's all reads. Where's the puck? Where's the puck? Where's my teammates? Where's the opponent? And where should I go? And there's 1,000 different variations. But if our players aren't putting that consistently, it's hard to make those decisions because we're making them for them. If you as a coach are making the decisions for your players are going to struggle once you're not able to do that for them.
So I've got a question, Roger.
Sure, John.
Most of us on the meeting here, we're coaching the MDL, Mike Development League,
Yep.
and as such, we've got players that, for their age, have pretty good skill set. We've got the newer players that don't have the skill set.
Yep.
How do we coach all of them and give them, and this is just a cliche, their money's worth, and get them where they need to be with such diversity and skill set?
So, in the perfect world, at practice, I would take my team and I would make, say, how many kids on your team?
I don't know, what do you got, Rich, about 30?
We have 40. Let's just say we have 40 kids. We made 4 teams. I made 2 equal teams and 2 equal teams.
So what I would say to you, which is great, what I would say to you is, in practice, if I have 40 kids, I'm going to do 5 stations. And I'm going to put about 6 of my best kids in station 1 that are on the ice. The next 6, the next 6, the next 6. And within that station, 3 of them are going to be wearing red, 3 of them are going to be wearing white.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. Exactly what you were talking about.
And then if you can, during games, I don't know what your format is for games. I'm hoping it's cross ice, but I'm not going to get into that whole argument with anybody tonight. But what they do in parts of the country that have figured this out and do it really well, like Minnesota, is I go to the other coach and I say to him, start your top 3 or 4, depending on what the format is, 4-on-4, 3-on-3, going cross ice. And the horn's going to blow every minute and a half or 2 minutes. Put your top 3, I'm putting my top 3 out. So now when we compete against another team, my top players are going against the other team's top players, and my weaker players are going against the other team's weaker players.
100%. That's what we have going on with Medford.
So that if you can create that environment, it's an absolute home run. So if you guys are doing that, you're way ahead of the curve compared to most places.
Yeah, it's all about puck touches, right? You don't want
it's absolutely about puck touch. But the mistake that's made is when a parent or a coach gets all bent out of shape because they think that if like any one of us on the call could go up to Boston, sit in the locker room and sit next to Pasternak, and just because we're on the ice with Pasternak on a daily basis doesn't mean we're going to be Pasternak, right? His job is not to pull me along. That's my job. The development as an athlete at the age of about 13, 14 becomes the athletes, not the coaches, not the teammates. that mentality, we try to put that adult culture down on little kids. Competition does not drive development. If I'm a young kid at 8 years old and I'm constantly chasing the best player and I'm not ever touching the puck or scoring a goal, I'm not getting better. And the life's getting sucked out of me. Because I don't feel good about myself because I'm never touching the puck or scoring a goal. I'm never the guy. So we got to create that scenario where, like, our weaker players are getting touches and building confidence, and our better players are actually struggling a little bit. Your better players struggling a little bit is a good thing. Now, I will say that if it's my son or daughter, and if they're not in the top 5 on their team, I would almost rather them be on the next team down. Because the format in the United States, especially when you get to 10U, 12U, and you get to the full ice model, is the top, 4 or 5 kids dominate the game. And it's a breakaway, then a breakaway, then a breakaway, and it's like feeding time at the zoo and everybody else is chasing the pack. Right? And if you're not, you're better off being in the top group from a confidence, because being an effective player at the next level, confidence is a huge piece of the puzzle. Huge piece.
All right, so between Learn to Skate, MDL, and Mites, these coaches are pretty much, we're all together. Like, we have kids, Learn to Skate, MDL, and Mites. How can we translate all this into like a 6U with hockey sense? Like, with their limited attention spans, like if we don't structure it a little bit, they're off to La La Land. You know what I mean?
Well, no, there's structure. There's definitely structure. But it's not the structure that you might, it's not old school structure. So there's a purpose to what I'm doing. There's a goal and there's accountability to the right stuff, right? So if I'm gonna work on, I'll show you. I'll share some stuff with you. Okay. So if I'm gonna work on skating, bear with me a second here. I gotta get gotta get to my screen. If I'm gonna work on some skating, say I'm gonna work on some edge work or something, right? I gotta keep that 5 elements in the back of my head, right? So how can I create that scenario? And I'm sure some of you guys have seen this and do some of this. I forgot to share. Bear with me a second. Where we're getting that decision making, right? So box tag, I got to get 2 feet in, 2 feet out without getting tagged, right? So now where I go is based off of a read on where's the defender. The defender's trying to figure out where I need to go to tag somebody. And as I'm watching this, I'm going, well, you know what? This is too easy for the guys on the outside, too hard for the guy in the middle. So what do? I have to adjust. So I put 2 guys in. And so now watch the deception of the players on the outside. A little head fake, shoulder fake to get the defender to bite. Watch how much more difficult and the angles the players take. I mean, this is not easy. Like, I would never even attempt this at my age because I'd snap an ankle, right? And at some point, I can add all kinds of different layers to that. I can have pucks on the outside. I can have the players on the inside stick handling a puck. I can make them pass on the outside. I can do a million different variations. But I've got game-like situation because we're working on scanning. We're working on where's the defender, where's the open space. We're working on deception. We're working on agility, coordination, balance. That's player development. And the beauty of it is, look at how much harder those kids are competing than they would if we were just doing edge work or some type of agility, right? So there's a million things like that out there. I'll share another one with you.
Yeah, border tag is popular with the kids.
But any kind of game like this, I forgot to share again, didn't I?
Yep.
Bear with me. So this I call pick 3, right? So everybody does some type of this type of stuff, right? Where they got to get around tires, and there's a puck down here. It's a race to the puck. But instead of telling a kid, hey, kid in white, you got to go around the tires on the left, kid on the right, you got to go around the tires on the right. I just tell the kids, you got to go around 3 of the 4. I don't care which 3 of the 4 you go, but you got to go around 3 of the 4. So what do they think? What do you think they have to base their decision off of? What does it force them to do?
It makes them pick their head up, look for the other player, what tire they're going to, and etc.
Exactly, Mark. Then if I go to the same tire as my opponent and I get behind him, now I'm screwed.
Yep.
Now I'm in a bad spot. So I'm not only worried about which tire I got to get around. It's my decision. Coach isn't making the decisions for me. I got to be aware of where my opponent is as well. So just by changing the mentality of give the responsibility to the player on where they go, when they go, how they go, right? Based off a decision, based off of a read, not on a predetermined pattern by the coach. Because once it's predetermined, there's no thinking, right? There's no thinking. So, it's just a simple tweak that really forces the other thing. Now, I also tell you this. There's other things you can add to games like this or drills like this that force better habits. One would be, if I don't get the puck first, I can still win the game. Because if I get a rebound or if I can, back check and win the puck and get it to the coach, I get the point. So now I'm encouraging defensive play. Because what happens if this drill doesn't have that option in it? If I don't get the puck first, I shut down. I quit. I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I encourage staying in the game, staying in the battle, even though it didn't work out for me the way I wanted it to right out of the gate? So I do a lot of stuff I call pit hockey, where it's 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, where they're just trying to hit a target, right? And what I tell the kids all the time is, you have the puck. I want you to hit the target as many times as you can. So now I'm forcing the offensive players to stop in the scoring area instead of one and done. Because if it's one and done, I hit the tire, I skate back, I go defend my tire. But if I can stand there and score 3 or 4 goals at one time, I'm teaching kids how to stop in front of the net. 2, I'm forcing back check and battle for my repetition. Because if it's one and done, the coach is going to give me my turn, so why would I work hard defensively? If I get beat, I'm done. I'm shutting down. Coach is going to bail me out and give me the puck, right? Again, hockey's the one sport that when you score, you don't get the ball. It's not your turn. You got to win a face-off and keep possession, right? It's the beauty of the sport. So there's a million things that you can do to create the environment we're talking about, right? I call it Flintstone vitamins. How do I deliver something good for them? They just don't know it's good for them because it's hidden in fun, competition, game-like, and all those 5 elements, right? I'm going to show you one more because it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. Where did that go?
Is that tire drill in the USA Hockey packet?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know what I did with this other one. I apologize. But this would be similar to it. So this is a little progression. Call it 4 corners. And it's kind of a chaos and I'll start it from the beginning. It's kind of just a chaos stick handling give and go. And of course the goaltenders are doing it as well. But there's a bunch of lines where you have to skate and give the puck and get it back. Okay? But then it progresses to one puck, and then it's a keep away, 3-on-3, where you can only use your line to relieve pressure. Your colored line, your teammates on the outside. So now it's man-on-man defense on the inside, but it's working to the puck when you have the puck, right? And so it's constantly forcing and accountability to space, right? If we're gonna play between the blue lines, we're playing between the blue lines. If you go over the blue line, I'm gonna throw a new puck in. I'm not gonna let you. There's a reason for the space. The space is to make it more difficult. I'm gonna hold you accountable to the space. That's really critical. I see so many coaches set up a drill in a tight space, but then they let the kids go all over the place. It just doesn't have the same effect. Anybody else? Any other questions? I hope I answered it.
Quick question for you, sir. When would be a good time when you'd, I don't know, something's wrong with my screen, when you'd start having goaltenders be goaltenders? Or would you let them stay out till they were 8, 10 in regular equipment and learn to skate?
No, I wouldn't necessarily have them in regular equipment. If you saw all those drills I did with the college kids, the goalies, I don't have a problem with the goalie going in his goalie gear. If a kid is in our game because they love the position, let him be in the position. But two things: one, he's not just going to sit in the net and practice. He's going to do everything else everybody else is doing, because he's got to be the best athlete at some point. Two, he's got to be a great skater, and three, he's got to be able to handle the puck. So if I'm not doing that for him, I'm not making a goaltender, right? And so if the kid wants to play out, let him play out. I don't have a problem with that. If he doesn't, because he loves the goalie, make him wear his gear and make him do other stuff besides just sitting in the net, right? Because at some point you got to learn how to handle that gear and handle that stick and handle those gloves and still be productive. So if I never put the kids in that situation in practice, I'm not developing a goaltender, right? And so I would say to you, like if I'm playing, if I'm doing like a ring-at keep away, if I'm doing a tag game, if I'm doing something, I'm going to make the goaltenders that box tag. I'm going to make the goaltenders skate and compete and play. I'm not just going to let them do their goalie stuff because I'm trying to build the base for them.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer it?
Yes.
It's the other thing too is we strongly encourage, and we have the quick change program, and we strongly encourage that you allow other kids to experience the position, especially in a smaller association, so that you don't end up with a deficit in numbers of goaltenders.
Yeah, we bought 2 pairs.
Yeah. Let other kids try it, and let your goalies, The other thing you got to think about too is, and people don't talk about this a lot, but think about the stress you put a young kid in as a goaltender at a young age. Usually the game kind of, depending on what team they're on, it's on their shoulders. If they're not good, it can be really difficult, right? If they have a tough game, they know it. They can't hide. You cannot hide as a goaltender. And so just spreading that around a little bit. And then the other thing is, when you do have 2 goaltenders, we actually strongly encourage teams to minimally split games. Like we have teams that win our national championship on both the boys and girls side at the 14U, 15 only, 16 and 18, where they'll rotate the goalies every 5 minutes. You think about Swayman and Allmark, right? Think about that in culture and environment and how healthy that is. Obviously it backfired a little bit on them in the playoffs, but they got the best tandem in the league, and part of it's just because of the way Jimmy's handled, right? It's pretty impressive, actually. And you don't see that very often. Usually there's your number 1 guy, and then the other guy's a distant 2. But those guys are pretty even. and the way they use them is impressive. But think about a kid who goes to the rink or travels to a game, and he's going to be the backup that day. So he's going to commit 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday or Sunday and get 0 ice time. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Practice to game ratios. We are currently at a 4-to-1 practice to game ratio. Is that
Awesome. Home run. Absolute home run. And that the key there too then is making sure that practice is fun. That practice doesn't become monotonous. You know, I always say to coach, like, if you went and watched any of the Division I teams in Mass, you went and watched Jimmy run practice with the Bruins, I think you'd be surprised. There's some flow and go, but I think you'd be surprised at how many practices start with a game, start with a competition. I think you'd be blown away. I'm up in Montreal at least 1 week a month, working with them, and it's amazing where the games come.
Well, if I had any feedback toward everything ADM, I wish there was a dedicated 6U packet for 4 and 5. You know, you get them on the ice and learn to skate at 4 years old, 5 years old. I basically have to pick through the 8U to see maybe they can do this, maybe they can't.
Yeah, I would say that there is we just came out with a new dynamic skating course. It's brand new. Strongly encourage you to take a look at it. Some of the stuff I showed you tonight. But I think a lot of that is if I was running a learn to skate, learn to play, I would try to find somebody that maybe knows nothing about hockey and just understands fun.
That's on the website, usahockey.com.
Yes, there's a brand new dynamic skating course. Yeah,
I'll check.
Yep, absolutely. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll get it to you.
All right, will do.
Yeah, it just came out, and we have a whole staff that's running around the country trying to deliver that.
Awesome.
And it's right. It's exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, you're right. I do a lot of stuff. If I show people what to do, I do a lot of stuff. So you got the kids out there with the crates or the chairs or whatever. I just do a ton of stuff where the whistle blows, they got to go find a new one, right? Almost like musical chairs.
Yeah.
So now there's a period of time when they're skating without it, but they're racing to get to a new one. So everything at that age is about races and fun and compete and tricking them into falling down and getting back up and moving their feet. If you watch a really good figure skating course, they're out there with a marker and they're drawing apple trees and dogs and cats, and they're saying, go skate to the dog and erase it. So now they're working on their inside edges, trying to scrape the ice, right? Little tricky stuff like that. It's a game changer.
For sure. You guys have any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Roger. Definitely going to try and incorporate more decision-making games in the stations, for sure.
Yeah, that's critical. And if you I would tell you this. I think the mistake that's made too is that if you go through all of our practice plans, there's stuff at 14U, there's stuff at the collegiate level, there's stuff at the pro level that you can simplify just a little bit and use at AU. I think you'd be surprised. It's really not that high end stuff. That the high end coaching stuff happens more at that level in the video room than it does on the ice. So I appreciate everybody's time. I wish you all the best of luck. If you would like some of the stuff that I just did, just send me an email. I'll transfer it to you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you soon.